Hey guys, Rowan here. I wanted to show off this elevator I made. It's not perfect, but it's difficult to break and it's very extendable. This isn't exactly going to be a tutorial because, frankly, I don't have the energy for all of that. It's more of an explanation of the elevator's mechanics, so maybe you can understand how it works, build one for yourself, maybe improve on it further. So first things first, it's not actually nearly as complicated as it looks. The short version is you push a button and a signal goes down this wall to this mechanism at the bottom, which compares the last floor to the button that gets pushed. If it's higher, it calls the elevator up. If it's lower, it calls the elevator down. It sends a signal to one of these torches back here, and each torch just corresponds to a floor. In the extended version, I started with the comparing mechanism. I needed a way to store one value, so I used this machine here. It's effectively a series of T flip-flops, with a current running across the top to reset every set of droppers every time a new signal is received. So you can see, basically, it only activates one output at a time. And it will keep that active until a new input is received. It can break if you spam inputs. You can see it doesn't really look broken yet, but fascinating. Well, it broke the last time I checked, so rest assured. But if it breaks, you can fix it by doing that, or the next time you do a proper input, it would fix itself. After that, I needed a way to check if the value was higher or lower. Thankfully, there is an item specifically for that, the comparator. It's literally what it was made for. Everything beneath here is basically to carry the input signal to the comparator wire. And then this outputs the storage also to the comparator. So you can see this is the comparator that checks if it's higher or lower. It was mainly just a matter of timing these to be right so that I can do this next part, where basically if there's an output, it will lock this current and prevent it from going up. And at the same time, it will instead go up and send the elevator, I believe, down on this one. No, that's actually the up circuit. But if the comparator does not have any output, then this signal is free to go through and send the elevator down. So yeah, tuning that to work was really just a matter of messing with the timing on the repeaters until it worked. After that, the floor signal is very straightforward. Once that process is done, the new floor is stored and its signal is sent up the tower. As I mentioned, each torch corresponds to a different floor, so you can see this torch is floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, floor 4, and so on. Yeah, and while I'm here, I may as well just talk really quick about the the call function. It's basically just two torch towers that activate the flying machine's observers. That's pretty much it. The signal does come all the way from the bottom, so that does kind of bring me to the major shortcoming of this design, is that the taller you make the elevator, the longer it takes to get signals to the further floors, basically. While I'm at this point, this seems like a good chance to talk about the button system. Hang on, let me just do this really quick. We'll get to that later, but basically, the buttons just send a signal down this way. It's, simpler is better. If you didn't know, when you have a wall, if you put something next to a wall, it almost instantaneously changes the shape of the wall all the way down. And so that's basically the principle that's being used here, is a piston is pushed into the wall, and it changes the shape of the wall. An observer receives that, and basically whichever column was changed, that is the input that gets sent into the processing. Down where the signal is received, it gets a little bit more complicated, but not too much. So these repeaters right here just basically carry the signal. Because, the buttons are on the opposite wall, there needs to be a little bit of space created. And so that's pretty much all they're for. But on the other side is the locking mechanism, which I used just now. It's basically hooked up to a T flip-flop. This is nothing really special, it's just the first T flip-flop design I learned, so it's just easy for me to use. Basically, when it receives a signal through this redstone dust underneath the block, it activates the T flip-flop, or rather deactivates it, and these pistons will retract, preventing the buttons from actually doing anything. There you go. And basically, each floor has a mechanism to tell when the elevator is received, and then send that down to the bottom, where it will also activate the same circuit and unlock the elevator. The only thing is, if you do spam buttons too fast, then more than one input can be received. Well, faster than that, I guess. But more than one input can be received, and basically just short circuit the processing system, which is generally not an issue, but because of the lock, you can't just send the elevator back and forth until it fixes itself. So you have to manually unlock it, which could just be accomplished by a button on each floor hooked up to some vertical redstone that just goes right here and unlocks it, right? But after that, I guess we may as well go into the locking system for each floor. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, each torch corresponds to a floor. And so basically, it just, while the floor is the sort of active floor, I guess, just the torch that the floor corresponds to is active, and so there's just dust hooked up to it, hooked up to pistons, which push blocks into the flying machine that I've made. And then on this side is the locking mechanism, basically, or the unlocking, which is just an observer hooked up to a repeater. But it's also hooked up this way so that when the observer is first pushed, the signal that it sends does not get through. Yeah, that's basically it. So, do a little demonstration of it, I guess. So this should be floor 4, I believe. Oh, floor 5. Okay. 6. Like I said, on higher floors it does take a little longer to receive the call command, basically. And I can go all the way back to floor 1. Yeah, you get the gist. So, yeah. Just thought that was a pretty cool design. Thanks for watching.